Half of the battle in becoming an artist is making consistent effort. If you can accomplish that, you are sure to improve. Even if by chance you learn something incorrectly, the muscle memory you gain will give you greater control over your hand and the lines you create as you course correct your work. Today I'm going to show you how to make consistent effort with your drawings and get better at drawing in general by applying just a few simple strategies. And next week I will be implementing all of those strategies and showing you how I do that, probably doing some skull drawings. I'm learning the head right now, going through the anatomy, so we can learn it together. If you want to make consistent effort, the only way to do that is to make a strong habit. You can draw like a madman and burn yourself out every few days, but that's not really a sustainable way to work. Making a strong habit will help you in the long run. There are many different strategies to making a new habit, but the easiest is something I picked up from James Clear about intent. Intent is a simple trick that doubles your chance of success, and it bypasses the need for any kind of motivation to get you started. Most of us have the desire to draw, but the ones who actually stick with it and stay consistent do one thing differently from the rest of us. They make a plan, and not just any plan, but one that sticks to a specific time and place where they're going to draw. Researchers like to call this implementation intention. When situation X arises, I will do Y. This can come in many different variations and get as specific as you want, but the important part is to be specific enough that you give clarity to what you're going to be doing. It makes it easy to follow through. So for example, after I pour my cup of tea, I will draw for 1 hour at my desk. Or at 2 p.m., I will draw for 30 minutes on my iPad in the living room. If you'll notice, there's a specific time and place for the behavior, which makes it easy to follow through. And just by doing this, you double your chance of success to actually follow through on that new behavior. If you've ever seen The Office, you might remember the episode where Jim trains Dwight to want a mint every time he boots up his computer and hears that boot up sound. Very close to what we're doing with the implementation intention. With enough repetition, eventually you'll feel compelled to draw at the time and place that you've laid out every single day or every single week. You may not know what's compelling you to do it, but you'll feel uneasy if you don't draw versus before you had trouble just getting started. Obviously, you have a life and responsibilities outside of art. Those are going to get in the way of your intent to draw. The more days you miss, the harder it is for you to continue, especially if it's a new habit. If you show up for yourself, even for a fraction of the time, it can really make all the difference. I usually draw in the mornings. That's how I've started my habit so far. And I went hiking this morning with my cousin, so I had to change that up a bit. Instead, I drew at night. It was a lot harder to get started, so I only made the commitment to do something small, a little sketch, and that made me feel accomplished, like I had done drawing for that day. I showed up for myself. And that's really all you need to do, especially at the start of a new behavior. Showing up is the hardest part, and the more that you can repeat that action, the less difficulty you're going to have to actually sit down and make that behavior happen. For us, it's drawing. For someone else, it could be painting. Whatever it is, if you show up for yourself, the more times you do it, the easier it's going to get. Do keep in mind that if you're finding that you can't accomplish your drawing at the time and place that you intended, and you're getting disrupted every single day, maybe you need to shift the intent implementation. Don't try to fight against your life super hard. Make sure that there's a good place for it, and that you have the time to work on it uninterrupted. You might think it's unnecessary to track your progress as you show up each day, but I think it's vital to your growth. The only hard part about tracking your habit is that tracking your habit becomes a habit in of itself. It sort of has its own built-in reward system because you get to check off the day and feel accomplished. It makes you feel more confident, but it is still something that you have to get used to. If you don't track your habit, you're gonna forget how long that you've been doing it. So it's easier to have missteps and sort of let those go, and it's also harder to see gradual improvements. When you're a beginner, there's a staggering difference in your improvement over time. You might improve a lot over 3 months or even a couple weeks, But the farther you get as an artist, you're not going to see those giant gains. It can be very helpful to show that you're actually tracking your progress so that you know you're actually improving. For example, you might not see much progress in your artwork when you look at it for even a month back, but you've gradually increased the amount of time that you're working on your drawings from 30 minutes to an hour. If you didn't track your habit, you may not know that, or you might miss it. And you're not going to be able to feel that confidence boost that comes with that kind of improvement. So tracking your habit really helps you stay confident throughout the whole journey. You'll be able to see all the momentum you're gaining, no matter how small it is. I said at the beginning that half of the battle of becoming an artist is staying consistent. And the other half of that is obviously doing the actual drawing. Technically, there's no right or wrong way to study, but there are extremely inefficient and efficient ways to go about it. Fortunately for you, I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm going to help you adopt the most efficient and effective techniques to get better at drawing. If you hope to draw anything, you're going to need to build a visual library. It's one thing to look at the world around you, but it's a whole nother to actually draw it. There was a time where reference was really discouraged. Even when I was a student, I would hear it a lot from other students and even several teachers. Thankfully, that's not really too much of the case anymore. Most artists will encourage you to use reference. You need to draw from reference to improve your understanding of the world and the characters in it. Drawing from reference is really the first step to mastery. Sadly, most people stop at drawing from reference, or they try to draw from memory and they get discouraged because it's difficult and they go back to drawing from reference. It happened to me, and it happens to a lot of artists, and I'm here to make sure that it does not happen to you. When you draw from memory, you reinforce the drawings that you made from reference. If all you ever did was draw from reference, you'd never be able to pull that information from memory because you've never practiced it. It makes sense, right? You draw from reference to be able to draw from reference better. If you want to draw things from your imagination or from your memory, you have to practice drawing from memory or your imagination. It's going to look worse at first because, you don't have anything in front of you and you're trying to pull things from memory, and that's hard. So it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to look worse, and that's why most people tend to go back to using reference all the time. But if you can be comfortable with being a little uncomfortable at first, you will start to get used to it and you'll be able to draw better and better without the use of reference. And then reference just becomes a tool and you use it in the way that really it should be used, which is as a reference, not a one-to-one copy, which is what we tend to do when we study as beginners. When you draw from memory, you're strengthening your ability to recall that information and use it again. But it's not just that. You're also strengthening your ability to freely use that information and manipulate it however you want. For example, if you are studying a photo of a portrait, but the lighting is not really flattering or it's just not designed the way that you want to, if you've studied other lighting scenarios, you can change the lighting on that portrait. And you can only do that if you study from memory. You've totally changed what that reference photo is going to become. You may still take from it the colors and how the model looks, but you've changed the lighting scenario, and now you get to call that piece yours and not a copy. You build your visual library, you reinforce that information, and then you draw from your imagination to create your own concepts and characters and just build entire worlds. Each step builds off the next. In this one, you're taking what you drew from memory, but now putting it in a real-world setting. You're designing your own characters, your own environments, creatures, anything that you can come up with. So the last strategy that I have for you is kind of a bonus one, and I talked about this in my last video, but it's to practice self-compassion. It really should be number one. If you hope to be an artist, that struggle is for a lifetime. If you don't have a healthy relationship with your art, which you do by practicing self-compassion, it's going to be torture to be an artist. Realistically, if you were to put in a moderate amount of effort and be consistent, you could probably become a professional artist in about 5 years. I've been doing it for 9 years. Some of you may be at it even longer. If you're studying art for 20 years and you don't have a good relationship with it, that's when people become hobbyists or they give up and do something else. There's nothing wrong with that, but if they really wanted to become artists, that's really sad. You need a healthy relationship with your art to study it for a long period of time. And for most of us, it's going to be a lifetime. If you have the drive to be an artist and you know this struggle with the art journey, you know where I'm coming from. Be kind to yourself, believe in yourself, and hold on to that always. If you want to draw and paint what's in front of you, that's great. There's lots of amazing artists that do that, but this is not for you. This is for designers. The character concept artists, the environment artists, the creature designers, video game artists, anime artists, the artists who want to create worlds that don't exist and populate it with the things that they find exhilarating. That's what I want to do. And I imagine if you've gotten this far, it's probably what you want to do too. These simple strategies will help you have a successful art journey. It's not always going to be easy. In fact, most of the time it's going to be hard. If you're kind to yourself and you remember to have fun while you're going through this journey, you will most likely survive it. I believe in you, and we're going to learn together every step of the way. If I can struggle this much and still find a way to accomplish this art journey, I know you can too. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for watching. Bye.